Yeah, but this is, I mean, there's nothing wrong with following up.
All right, we're running a little late, so we're going to get started. Welcome, Dr. Spraggs. The Board of Trustees is happy to have you with us today. We have a series of questions that will be presented to you by members of the Board of Trustees. And those questions have been set and assigned to each member. You'll have approximately 7 minutes for an answer, and we're going to leave approximately 5 minutes for a follow-up, and that should get us out of here on time. I would tell you that, and this is not a comment for you because something happened today that was not your fault, but we had a couple of questions in the community forum, the general forum, related to diversity by some community members that did not get into the questions that you were asked because somebody synthesized them, and there was a feeling that the essence of the questions was lost. So we have incorporated those, so there'll be a couple of extra questions, and we may run you a bit over time if that's agreeable with you. I will tell you that following each question, there may be follow-up by a board member, any board member after the board member who asks, but we will try to hold to the 12-minute timeline. That will still leave a little time left over for you to make a final comment if you choose. And I believe Ms. James has the first question.
Dr. Spraggs, this is a repeat This is a repeat question from the general forum, but for the sake of those who were unable to attend that forum, please comment on the following. Community colleges are playing an increasingly important role in developing the Michigan economy and preparing the state's workforce. Grand Rapids Community College takes this part of its mission very seriously. A, would you please express your vision of the initiative of the college's workforce and economic development program should be, let me please start again. Would you please, A, express your vision of the initiatives the college workforce and economic development program should be conducting? B, what are the first things you would do as president to ensure the college's workforce and economic development program is on track? And C, what steps would you take to broaden the college's base of involvement of its faculty and staff in the program area?
Okay, that last part, the program area, any program area or in workforce development?
In workforce development.
Thank you. I think in general, community colleges can play a major role in workforce development and ultimately economic development for any community. I think it was an ACCT brochure that I read recently was talking about community colleges as the engines of prosperity, and I truly believe that's the case. It's been the case, and it's still the case. So, given that, your question about a vision for workforce development. First of all, I think that's a very important part of the role of a community college. It's a very important part of the role it plays in the community. But in order to do that, and in order to develop a vision, the college, the president leading the college, really needs to be very involved with the community to find out what that need is. It has to be something that is a personal kind of approach to the community, to the business and industry in the community, to really ascertain the needs. GRCC has a very good institutional research department, and a lot of that data is at a state level, at a community level, and that kind of data needs to be brought forth to develop that vision, but the specifics of that vision. But I think my vision in general in terms of workforce development is it's such an important part of the role of the community college. It should have a premier kind of status with the college. I think the transfer role of the college is equally important, and the two can be very synergistic. The two can work together very well, to promote student learning in either venue. But many times, and community colleges, they do this best, they can be very flexible, nimble to meet emerging needs that universities would have trouble doing. And I think that role could be played in the Michigan economy. There's new needs based on where the auto industry is, where major industries are, and those needs are changing. They're very dynamic. It's a moving target in some respects, and the college needs to be very aware of that so that it can play that role, that very important role in the community. The first thing, you asked me what was the first thing I would do in terms of workforce development, and it is that analysis of the needs. I'm sure a lot of that analysis has been being undertaken already by the college, but I haven't seen it yet. And it's something that I would want to understand, discuss with the board, discuss with community members. Is this really the accurate story? Is this the picture that we're looking at? Are these the needs for the companies, for the industry, for emerging needs in this community? Are these the ones? So that, to me, that analysis would be very much, a priority in terms of workforce development. And, the last part, I think your question was what kind of programs do you think are needed? I'm not clear on that.
What steps would you take to broaden the college's base of involvement of its faculty and staff in the program, the program area?
Okay. I think it's very important. I see in many colleges, like it's almost a silo effect where, the transfer mission and the workforce development mission become separated. I think, to me, it's very important that faculty and staff understand the connection of those two. Many workforce development programs have, general education kinds of backgrounds that are very important for those to succeed. Many times workforce development programs, they start because of a need, but they become a continuing need and can be moved over into degree or transfer programs themselves. So you need to have that back and forth, that connection between academic programs and transfer type programs and workforce development programs. Because I see it as it's a very fluid kind of process. Those programs come and go, they become institutionalized, they go away as needs change, and that kind of conversation needs to be, kept going forward, and the president really has a responsibility to keep those conversations going so that continually you can improve programs and meet community needs in a better way.
Thank you.
Could I follow up, please? Dr. Spraggs, your comment about programs come and go, that's a hard, oftentimes a hard situation the board finds itself in, because the needs drawn upon the data would say to us that we need far many more graduates in nursing. And perhaps there are programs that the employability study is that it's not there. How do you go about reconciling those two? What process would you use?
Well, you gave a difficult example. I mean, nursing has other limitations in terms of that as a program based on clinical sites in the area. I mean, there's other factors that weigh upon the extent of that program. But programs need to go away periodically in a college. I mean, when I went to Broome, there were a number of programs that had very low or no enrollment, and they were still in the books. And I think you need to constantly purge programs that are no longer needed and create new programs. So it's something you have to look at constantly. Sometimes purging programs doesn't really have any economic impact because they already kind of died, But nevertheless, there are times when you have programs that have expense and have, resources that could be committed to another program, possibly nursing. But, like I said, there's a lot of other factors involved with that. But you need to constantly be reallocating resources to the highest needs. So, and part of that is periodically closing programs or eliminating programs. But it is a difficult thing to do, and there's people involved, there's students involved, and you have to be very sensitive to relocating people and meeting the students' needs. But to have programs that will lead the student nowhere. I mean, if it's a program in an area that is no longer viable employment, that's really unethical to sell a student a program that will not get them anything. So that's very important that those programs are looked at. If they're on the books, the students assume it's viable, it will lead to a career, and that may not be the case, and the college has an ethical responsibility to take those off.
Next question, please.
Dr. Spraggs, Grand Rapids Community College serves a diverse community and student body and prides itself in a diverse faculty. Describe what diversity means to you and provide some specific examples of your commitment to diversity within the institutions and the community you have led.
Well, diversity to me is a very broad term. It means a lot of things. Commonly we think of diversity in a racial or ethnic diversity, but I think it has to do with, gender diversity, has to do with sexual preference and diversity. It has to do with age and diversity. It's a very broad term in my mind. And community colleges are the most diverse institutions because of all those factors. They serve a very broad population of people and has to be very sensitive to that very expansive diversity of people that we serve. So, to me, it's very, like I said, it's broad. It's a broad term, and I would take it to another level. I am very concerned about the global society that we live in, which is even more diverse than any of our communities, taken as a whole. So I think diversity needs to go to the global, respect as well. And I think students in a community college need to understand that they are going to be competing in a global economy when they leave the college at some point in their life, if not already. So we need to really give them the opportunity to understand the global perspective on things, which is, the ultimate diversity, let's say. But things I have done in terms of promoting diversity. I think you mentioned that there is a diverse staff here. And I would say that's something that has to be watched very carefully. And you can have a position open in a chemistry department, the English department, just put an ad in the paper and you'll get a lot of qualified candidates. They may not be very diverse because of the way you advertise that position. I think it's really, the college's responsibility to actively look for diverse candidates for any position, to actively recruit diverse candidates for the college. I think for the college to be welcoming to a very diverse population, they need to see a very diverse faculty, staff, and administration. So, we have a responsibility to recruit as diverse a staff as we can. And, I've always used that as a principle as I've looked at staff to attempt to, increase the diversity whenever there's an opportunity, but to actually proactively try to do that in terms of hiring.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Can you also share with me evidence of your personal professional development as it relates to diversity?
Well, I have been a student all my life. Diversity has been... I went to school, my bachelor's degree was in Detroit, Michigan, in Wayne State University. My first position was at the Detroit Adult Education Institute. And in fact, I was the only white employee at that institute in the old Herman Kiefer Hospital in Detroit. So, my first position, I was the minority, in totally the minority. So that really brought some respect to me and a real perspective in terms of what it's like to be different. That has been with me ever since. I worked for an individual that was teaching a course, it was about urban education in Detroit. A black gentleman that was also a professor at a college in Washington. And I worked with him in Washington periodically as well. So my, at my earliest days, I was at a very diverse college when I went to school, and my first position in education was in serving minority populations almost exclusively. So I've done that in terms of its development in terms of my career, and that's sat with me ever since. That kind of experience. So other than that, I have been in very diverse campuses in Florida. My campus was the northern one in that county, which had a very high percentage of black population for our community. The other campuses were either Hispanic or black or both. So the whole system, the whole district, was very diverse overall. And I worked in that kind of environment. One of the things that I have tried to do, again going back to taking diversity to the global respect, is to recruit students from other countries to be at the college. At Broome, since when I was there was about 90 international students. We had a program with students from Central American and Caribbean countries that were in a quality program that we had run, and we had a grant through the U.S. Department, USAID. But that was one of our main ones. But we expanded that in the 4 years I was there to over 200 international students from 40-some different countries. So to me, that brought diversity on another level to our campus, which was reasonably diverse, not enough in my mind. But now those students that had not really experienced much diversity got diversity not just in race or skin color, but in whole cultural differences from many different countries and many different environments. So that's another thing that I'm very proud of, to really increase diversity to that level on the campuses I've been at.
I would just like to follow up. You've heard the statement, I hope, think globally but act locally. And we have 44 different languages spoken, among our students here. And I think a concern that as we listen to our populations is how, as a new president, how now do they connect to the Hispanic community? How now do they connect to the African American community? Because it's our job to be sure that happens, because there are some things, and give you a chance to respond, how would you personally, or how have you personally connected to a variety of communities?
Well, I've always been very community connected in every position I've had, and that includes being involved in NAACP events, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Florida. I've gone out of my way to make sure that I was in those kinds of environments, in those kind of groups, representing the college. And, of course, anybody who comes here as president has got to start from scratch. I don't think you have any internal candidates, so everyone that you have as a candidate is going to start from scratch in terms of being, integrating themselves into that community. It's a very important thing. I agree. It's something I've done before. I have no problem with doing it, and it would be a real priority to integrate myself into the community and to understand the various, ethnic groups in the community and understand their needs, their desires, their dreams, and really as a minority gateway of a community college, that's incredibly important for a president to be able to have that kind of access. I do speak Spanish somewhat. I try to get away with Italian now and then. So I do, enjoy language and culture. I've told you my son is he's international education. He's a language person. He's going to be in France for the next semester. It's something that my family has always appreciated, the ability to travel, to understand other cultures, and to be, part of other cultures. So it's something that's important to me too. And I would do everything I could to integrate myself into those communities.
Just one other follow-up, Dr. Spraggs. If the board indicated to you they were concerned about the cultural climate of GRCC relative to the issue of diversity, what would you do as a president to assess the climate?
Well, I think there's a variety of data available that could help inform that. I mean, I some of you saw some of the other forms. I mean, and I admit it. I'm a data person. I want to understand that data. There are surveys that have been done. There are faculty surveys. There are student surveys of of satisfaction, those need to be looked into. I mean, to understand it. To hear there's an issue, but to pinpoint it is going to take some research. And, if you gave me that concern, hopefully I would have already known it was a concern and you didn't have to tell me. But if you told me that, it would be something I would very, definitively research to understand what is the issue, where is the issue, and then go about a plan, to develop a plan to fix it, whatever it might be. So, it's about data and it's about understanding, not just knee-jerk reactions.
Other follow-up. Next question, please.
Dr. Spraggs, as you know, the Board of Trustees stands as the ultimate fiduciary, has the ultimate fiduciary responsibility for running the college, so we feel like we need to focus on the issues of finance and fundraising. Your Vita indicated that at Bruin you had a budget of approximately $42 million. Our budget here is $100 million. Do you see that as something that you would have to transition to, and can you give us specific examples of your fiscal leadership?
Only one digit, so,
Yeah. One big zero.
Yeah. I have, through my career, I've progressively been in charge of bigger and bigger budgets. I think the room budget is actually up to about $47 million now, so it's about half of what your budget is. But the principles are the same. The issues of fiscal responsibility and budgeting, it's all the same. It's just on a slightly bigger scale. So I have never had any budget issues in my career. I've never had any shortfalls. In fact, typically every year we've had a surplus, and an unexpected surplus by efficiency, by looking at efficiencies, by looking at making sound financial decisions. Now, I certainly, trust the staff that is involved in that, but it's something that, when I was at Broome, recognizing that fiscal responsibility as a president, I spent a lot of time with the financial staff, with the comptroller, and with the budget officer to really to build my confidence in the data they were giving me. And, that's something I would do here. I don't expect that there's any issue with it, but I want to have a real familiar understanding myself as president. I don't want to just, because I can't, and I would never say, it's their fault we're over budget. No, it's my fault. And so I take that responsibility, but in taking that responsibility, I would, want to have a real, clear relationship, a clear understanding of the process, of the budget process. And I think it needs to be very transparent to the whole community of the college. So, more eyes watching it, the better, in my mind. So I've never had any budgetary issues in my career. I started my career as the director of continuing education, where I really kind of learned an entrepreneurial approach to finance, because in New York, continuing ed has to be self-supporting. So whatever money you spend, you have to take in enough money to afford to do that. So, I learned early on about the bottom line of the business of education, and that's really stuck with me throughout my career. And I've never had any issues, except not enough money, which is going to be an issue well into the future. And that's about strategically looking at making things happen with not enough money. It has to do with strategically, reallocating funds to make the right things happen. It has to do with getting, auxiliary funds from foundations, from the college foundation, from grants, from donations, whatever. You need to look for other sources of resource. You can't just depend on state and tuition all the time. You need to look at other ways to bring in money to the college so that you can continue to make things happen. Making things happen isn't always about not enough money. It's about not enough vision and not enough creativity. So that's important to me.
What process would you employ before you recommended to this board a hike in tuition?
I would have a planning process that I would have involved, students involved in, as well as faculty and staff. And the process that drives the budget would be the strategic plan of the college. And in terms of increasing tuition, I'd want to get student input on that. I'd want to get faculty and staff input. It would be done with a lot of, if it needed to be done, and it probably does need to be done on a periodic basis, it needs to be done with a lot of thought and a lot of communication and no surprises to the students, to the board, to the faculty. It's something that you have very major conversations about. But, it's for the ultimate goal of serving students better, and if you need to do that, if you need to raise tuition to do that, you just have to make a very good case on why that's the case to do that, and then move forward with it.
Thank you.
Could you go a little further with respect to your fundraising and foundation experience, and maybe some examples of initiatives that you've led in fund development?
The Broome County Foundation, interestingly, when I came to that position, the foundation was very separate from the college. In fact, the foundation director didn't really meet much with the president of the college. And I found that to be odd, to say the least, and also very ineffective. So when I became president at Broome, one of the things that I did early on was to work with the foundation to actually, for the first time in 50 years, have a memorandum of agreement about how we operate together, how, what our joint responsibilities, and got that through my board of trustees and the foundation board. So for the first time, we had like an agreement about how we work together. From there, it was important to me, the planning process that we had initiated had a lot of pieces in it that couldn't be funded, at least in any near term, from the normal college funding sources. And I looked at the foundation to help make the plan a reality, to make some things, important things happen, by looking at the opportunities for philanthropy to make things happen. So, for example, I worked with the plan called for a leadership academy for the faculty and staff, and that's something that I was succession planning is something that's very important to me. You need to have leadership, percolating down into the organization. It can't be just at the top. You could have leaders from the middle as well. So that to me was a very important issue for the college. It didn't cost a lot, but the funds weren't there in the normal scheme of things. So I went to the foundation director. How can we do this? And in our conversation, she says, "I'll bet if you could take this program to this certain individual, I think he would fund it." So, it was me going to the individual to talk about the program, how important it was, to sell it essentially, and he funded it. And he funded it the next year again. So it was, that kind of a process. That's a small example, but in general, I worked with the foundation. I met with the foundation director weekly, and we had 2 items on our agenda: money and other. So the money one was, where is there opportunity? And she would say, we could go talk to so and so about the program, or this scholarship or that, and I would work. She would set up the appointments, and I would work with individuals and foundations and to make the pitch for programs for needs of the college and make the ask for the donations. And we worked that very well. The foundation, and I'm not saying all by my efforts, but went from $12 million endowment to $16 million in the 4 years I was there. And that was by creating a climate where the foundation knew where the college was going. They knew what they would like to support. They knew donors that wanted to support those initiatives. And we moved forward with that. The last year I was there, this last year, 07-08, was the highest year ever in the foundation's history of donations from faculty, staff, alumni, and individuals. So our general fund solicitation was its best year ever. And again, that was, by having a college with a plan, having a president that was actively, working with the foundation and with donors, and, that transpired.
Next question.
Well, that would be me. We're on number 4. Dr. Spraggs, have you seen our ends mission, vision? Have you
Yes.
had a chance to? Well, my question has to do with all community colleges, especially ours. Sometimes we're under criticism to being all things to all people. And these ends have to do with transfer and articulation, developmental education, workforce development, lifelong learning, flexible learning. They've all become an integral part of our Grand Rapids Community College mission and are embedded into the college. Now, what do you see as the particular challenge in the next 2 to 5 years trying to be all things to all people, knowing that our vision is in place with specific ends?
Well, the ends that you have are not unique to community colleges. That's very, variations of the general theme for a comprehensive community college. All things to all people is another thing, and the college can't do that. I mean, I've seen, community colleges where they were providing senior citizen events and, a lot good things, but not necessarily, there are other organizations that could do those as well. So I think you have to look carefully. Those ends are not universal. Those ends could be the ends of another organization in the community with a little bit different twist. So I think you have to be cautious to not be all things to all people, because that's not sustainable over the long term. So you have to be careful with that. But those end statements, I think, are doable, and they really give a very good format for governance for the college. I mean, you can't take those end statements without the executive limitations and the other issues that you have set forth in policy governance. They all fit together in terms of accomplishment. But all I would say is that you need to be cautious. Those ends are important. You have to really refine them to be connected with the mission, the clear mission of the college. And it isn't all things to all people. And there, you need to be careful with that.
Well, I'd like to follow up on this question myself, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you go back to, you said a little bit of connective piece. Am I hearing the word partnership in there? That other entities could assist with it, or could you expand on that?
Well, partnerships or alliances, I mean, there are other, there's ways to work together but not have, to foot the whole bill, is what I'm saying. So you're absolutely, that's correct. I mean, and that's where I was going with that. There are other organizations that can be partners versus, subordinated to the college or, under the college's auspices. And those partnerships can be very valuable. They can be very efficient and economical for the college and still get some of those less tangible parts of the mission done through other organizations. I mean, they exist, and I can't tell you the ones that exist here necessarily, but in when I was in Lake Placid, I was the continuing ed director. There was a performing arts center in Lake Placid. We didn't have one at the college. It would be, even though performing arts, we had a great music program, would have been a great thing for the college to do, it was already being done in the community in another way. But we partnered with the Lake Placid Center for Music, Arts, and Drama, and we actually, did things together, and it was less expensive for them and less expensive for us. The community and the students got the benefit of both institutions. Those kind of things, you need to look for them, and you need to jump on them when you can find them, so that you don't have to duplicate efforts in the community, and you can be more efficient and financially responsible as a result.
Let me go back to another part of that question, and that is, I think we all recognize that there's difficulty in being all things to all people. There's very practical limitations on that. But recognizing that in many ways, not only is that our mission and goal at the college, the values that we've set forth, embracing those, but also by law in Michigan, we are at least two things to two different groups. One is an academic institution, one is a workforce institution. And I'm sure there are many others that we could think of. Recognizing that that's what we're always striving to get, what do you see as the biggest challenges to that effort?
Well, and I'm not saying this is exactly the way it is here, but as we talked last night to some extent, you have those two entities, and it would appear by organization that they're very separate. I'm not saying that they necessarily are, but that to me is a challenge to integrate those two issues of transfer and vocational or workforce development, to integrate them for maximum efficiency, efficiency of finances and other things, because there are overlaps, and you need to look for those and get a cross connection of those two entities and make it, so that they can work together, work more efficiently together, more economically together, by not, again, it's the same kind of thing I just was talking about, not recreating the same things in both areas. In other words, an example in the health sciences, you have courses about anatomy and physiology that you have to have before you can become a nurse. Well, there are colleges that will have anatomy and physiology for nurses over here, and then another one over here for majors. You need to work those together. You can't afford to have that many courses and different courses that are only slightly different, if at all. You need to make those connections so that you don't duplicate, replicate effort and double charge yourself money to do those things. So you need to look at those kinds of things and make sure that wherever there's integration possible, it can be done.
Another follow-up? Jan, I think you might have the next question.
I think maybe my reputation might precede me, but Dr. Spraggs, you've already mentioned a few of the key components of policy governance. At this board, not only as a complete board of the college, but as individuals, we are deeply committed to the working concept of policy governance. Now, as president of this college, you would be expected to work within this framework. To that end, describe your personal working relationships with the Board of Trustees in organizations of which you have been a part. And then I have another part, but we'll go to that.
Okay. I, have worked for a number of boards, and I have served on a number of boards, so I've, done both. And I think, taking my own personal board service, I've been on the board of a hospital foundation. Well, I don't know how to run a hospital. I don't know how to run a hospital foundation. But I knew the community that was being served. And so it's very important that a board member bring their expertise to the table and let the experts in terms of education or in terms of a hospital run the organization. I think that's really the beauty of policy governance. It respects the expertise of the hundreds of people that work at Grand Rapids Community College that know what they're doing, and not having to micromanage or work with that, because it's working well and it will continue to work well based on boards, but setting the clear direction, the ends, and setting the boundaries for the CEO to work under, setting boundaries that respect human resources and individuals, setting those boundaries from the broadest sense is really, it's a great way to run an organization. Let the organization be run by the experts, but let the direction be set by the community that you represent so well. So, I see policy governance as really the best of all worlds, and I believe me, I've been asking around as I talk to people, do they really practice policy governance? And I get that over and over again, that you really do. And I'm very excited about the opportunity to possibly work with a board that really walks the talk of policy governance. I think it's great, and it's the right way to do it. And I've tried to do that in my own board service, not to micromanage, but to be really a voice of the community that I'm representing.
Now, using policy governance as a framework, take an idea that you may have from inception to implementation.
Well, let's just go to the, what I just mentioned. I mean, your ends are talking about transfer and about workforce development. And that gives the direction clearly. Now, if I could figure out a way, using the resources of the college, the human resources of the college, can we integrate that better? Can we make that, the arts and science area, could we divide that into two, different groups? Could we reorganize in a way that integrated programs better? For example, if that's way, working with the staff and the individuals at the college, as long as the ends of transfer was well served and workforce was well served, I would, that could be a project to better integrate those areas through some kind of organizational change. I don't have any specifics on that, but to me that would be something I'd want to keep the board informed about, but that really is, a management kind of administrative change, but it doesn't change the ends at all, and in fact it may better serve the ends. That's a very rough example, but that's the way I would see that working.
I guess I'm going to ask for perhaps more examples of then how would you implement it? How would you approach the board as far as what we've already outlined, and then taking your idea to a point where it's actually implemented to serve the needs of the community?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've worked with boards that have board workshops where things like that are presented in a way, this is where we're going, this is how we plan to do it, as an informational item, and looking for input. But again, trying to stay at the policy level. I mean, those are things that I would do. I mean, one clear rule in my mind is never surprise your board. So that's very important that you understand where we might be going in that area. But it really is serving the ends that you've set, and to me, the responsibility of the CEO is to make sure you understand where that's going and how it fits those ends, but not necessarily to say, well, no, why don't you take this piece and put it over there and that piece over there? That would be out of the policy governance kind of realm. That would be kind of micromanaging that effort. So information, making sure that you understand that this does meet the ends that you've set, but again, letting the college move in that direction if that were the choice. Implementation to me has a lot to do with buy-in of the faculty and staff that are involved, has a buy-in with the students, has to do with the planning process. It's pretty complex and very holistic in my mind, but as far as the board aspect of it is to make sure you understand it and how it does still meet the ends that you've set.
What if you determined, though, in that conversation with the board that the path that you were taking, the interpretation that you were giving to that end was not the interpretation that the board gives it? How would you deal with that?
Well, that'd be very informative. That's why, going through that process with the board to, as I said, to make sure this meets the ends that you've set. And that could be an interpretation. Now, on the other hand, I would hope by the time anything came to the board of that nature, there'd been a lot of conversations either, with board in general and individuals to make sure. I mean, I think that's, in policy governance, that's a major issue for a president, to make sure that interpretation of, of limitations and of ends is clear. And that's something, board CEO relationship, a lot of time should be spent on that. And I would, to make sure I understood and you understood where I was coming from in terms of those interpretations and limitations, interpretations, etc. So it would be quite I think it'd be a long dialogue before things like that occurred.
One of the, it's not really a disadvantage, but one of the aspects of being a policy governance board and governing by policy, so to speak, we do not get into micromanaging, as you've said. But then on the other hand, this board, as what you've attested to, does not like surprises. Thereby, when sometimes new programs would be in the workings that possibly we haven't heard about, and we read about them in the paper, we get very, would possibly get very disappointed. How would you prevent this whole aspect of no surprises?
Well, I look for every opportunity to communicate with the board, and this would be a conversation I would have to have with you on what your preferences are. A weekly email of, updating you on issues at the college, a weekly newsletter, a weekly conversation, a weekly lunch with each of you. I mean, we need to work out how you would like to have that communication occur, but it must occur. I mean, I really need, I see CEO board relations is primarily about communication. And how we do that was something I'd want to work with you and create a way to do that together, or multiple ways to make sure that communication existed and every opportunity was for that to happen. And, I also got to review Michigan board laws. Can I meet with you individually, or is that, what are the laws, the rules about all that? But, within that venue, I would like to have as much communication as possible with the board on what's going on at the college. And, it's just smart business in my mind, because you know the community far better than I will for quite a while. And I need your advice. I need your counsel about the community needs that you represent. So I would want to spend considerable time communicating with all of you in as many venues as practical.
Others? Rick?
The college has benefited greatly from having had excellent presidential leadership for many years. Many excellent programs have been initiated, and the board supports the continuation of these. Dr. Spraggs, please describe your experience with tax referendums and millage campaigns.
Okay, none. I have not worked in a millage or tax referendum, venue. In Florida, there was a initiative that the county commission had put forth to raise taxes to do a number of projects. One of them was on my campus. So I worked pretty actively with that, about a auditorium that could be a community college, use. That particular tax initiative did not pass, but I worked very hard with the county commission to try to get that to happen. So, I've had that limited experience. But the areas, where I have worked, it's been primarily state and or county funding and tuition. Those have been the legs. The county funding has not come from referendum. The county funding came from the legislators of the county deciding to tax the citizens to do this, that, or the other thing. So it was, once removed from my hands in terms of that. So I haven't worked in a millage set kind of organization. So I really can't speak to that experience. I've certainly worked in an environment where lobbying at the state and national level was something I've done to try to get those pieces of the puzzle in place. In New York, there's a very large piece of funding comes from the state, and legislators can commit money to special projects at colleges, and so that's something that I've worked at in terms of the lobbying at the state level, and certainly working with the county to try to get them to pass initiatives that favor the county, but not in a broad-based millage. So I haven't had experience in that.
What was the percentage at the state funding and the percentage of county funding of your budget about?
The state funding was about 30% of our budget. The county funding was about 17-18%, and the students took up the bulk, which was like, I think, 46, if my numbers add up right. The students really took that hit, and that was something that was very concerning to me as a president and to the whole state. But that was pretty typical in the state. What I managed to do was keep our tuition level, while it was a high percentage of the total cost of the college, it was in the bottom third of the 30 colleges in the state. And that was important to me to be on the low end for a variety of reasons, because of the nature of our community and the economic, the socioeconomic mix of our community. It needed to be in that low percent or low third. But it did, I thought it was an extra burden on the students that the state and the county should have been taking up more of. And, working with the other presidents, we worked hard to make that happen and got, in years we got the state to go up, but the county didn't. Next year the state didn't go up, but the county, so it was an ongoing battle, yearly battle, to try to, get the funding up from the state. And actually it was legislated that they were supposed to do that. They were violating their own law, which is also interesting, and I think you get similar issues going on in Michigan.
Follow up?
Unless somebody's got another question, I had one other little question here for Dr. Spraggs. We realize that the next president will bring a fresh vision with new ideas and goals. Please share your thoughts on how you will approach the board, the college community, and the community at large regarding such change.
Well, first, I wouldn't come here with change in mind. I think it's important to come with fresh eyes, as you said. Fresh eyes often, really open up a lot. And, I could do that. Fresh eyes that have experienced a number of states, a number of colleges, a number of governing kind of situations. And I bring all that to the table. I think it's one of the things that I bring. One of my strengths is my breadth and depth of experience. And I would bring that. And that experience says you just don't change things when you walk in the door. It's about getting a joint vision of the college needs. That can happen in a variety of ways, through college governance, through planning process. I would really work very hard to get integrated into the community, as we talked about earlier, to understand community needs. I need to understand the colleges, what are its strengths and weaknesses. I need to understand that from a very intimate kind of level. So I would have a lot of homework to do, and all I can say is I'm a very quick study, and within the first year I would hope to have some plans for change where needed that would propel the college forward, that had a lot of buy-in from the faculty and staff and you, the board, about where we were going. So it was an agenda that we would set together, is my point. And it's an agenda we would set together, and then once we'd agreed on it, I would be, the person that could articulate it to the community with your help, to the faculty and staff and to the students. And that's where I think another real strength of mine that I bring is an ability to articulate a vision in a way that people understand, people get excited about it, and want to get on board. But it's something you got to do with those preliminaries in place, and then that would have to happen first.
I have another question. As we are on the doorstep of receiving the Baldrige Award because of the quality initiatives that this faculty and staff had worked so hard to achieve, have you had any personal experience with CEQA, the Continuous Quality Improvement Network?
No, I have not. It was where we were going at Broome. It was something I wanted to look at. We had a quality assurance program at the college, and quality issues were something that we actually taught in the curriculum and were integrating into the college as a whole. So it's something that I have not done. I'm aware of it. I understand it. I love the concept of it in terms of continuous improvement and the kind of data that generates and that you use to continually improve. And I mentioned today an article that I co-authored with some individuals about taking a college to the next level, to take it from success to significance. And you're on the way, but you need somebody to continue that process, and that's what I'd offer you. In fact, I haven't done that, but I have done a lot of transformational kinds of things at colleges that have brought them up another level, a notch, and that's what excites me so much about this college. It's already on the path, and you need somebody to make sure it doesn't get off the track. And I would love to be the person to do that, because I really am very simpatico with that kind of concept of continuous improvement, of data-driven decisions, and a culture of evidence really for a college. So that's all very important things to me. But I can't, I have not had specific experience in the Baldrige or the CEQA network. No.
Based on your experiences, what would you do to increase Grand Rapids Community College in focusing on its diversity initiatives in recruitment and retention? And could you be specific in your example?
First of all, you're saying recruitment of students or faculty or both?
Students.
Okay. What I've done in the past, and I think it's you need to look at the diversity of the community. You need to look at partnerships with the secondary schools, and to really make one of the things I found in Binghamton High School was the most diverse high school of our service high schools, and many of those minority students at the high school really didn't even think college was an option for them. We worked with the high school program very, in a way that reached way down into 7th grade and started pre-college programs specifically for minorities and other students, but specifically for minorities, to try to, first of all, get them, to accept the idea that Broome is an opportunity, it's a gateway for me to really improve my life. And it's one that they maybe not thought of, that their family had not participated in. But we wanted very early on to start to get students to think about opportunity at Broome when they're early in their high school, phase. So we worked a lot with the high school, and that's something I think is important, to work with the school systems to promote the college as an opportunity for everyone, particularly for minorities. We are, minorities are, the highest percentage of minorities are in community colleges in the country. It is already the place where minorities are welcome, or minorities are very present, and we need to continue that and make sure this college can accept minorities and do well by them, but it's got to get them in the door. So you need to actually recruit and make sure that minorities understand the opportunities that they will have at this college.
Tell me what that program would involve.
Well, we did a program, a Liberty Partnerships program was one that you can get grant funding for some of these programs, where students were brought on campus. They experienced like mini classes, college classes in areas of interest like engineering or various of the vocations in health sciences. So they get little snippets, let's say, of what college is like and what programs are like, and very purposely doing those programs in a way that's exciting, that gets their interest, and show them some success in what they participate in. Working with the high school teachers and counselors to continue those kinds of activities back at the high school. So that's it's a brief example, but trying to get people to understand college is accessible, trying to get them comfortable with our college, by having programs based both at the high school and at the college, to see that it is a comfortable place, that it's a place to be. Now that takes the bigger picture of part of being comfortable as a minority is to see more of your minority already succeeding at the school. So that it's something that you need to aggressively try to capture and promote, and then it builds. And that has to do with minority staff as well. I mentioned that earlier. You need to not just throw out the net and see what comes in. You have to actively, search out minorities to have staff positions. There are, historically black colleges, for example, that you could recruit at for positions that were available at the college. You can go beyond just putting out a notice that we have a job and actually, seek minorities in the pool so that you can, have that possibility.
Tell me, statistically, did this increase your recruitment?
Yes. We had, our minority enrollment was going up at Broome. Our penetration into high schools was one of the highest in New York by these kinds of programs, and our minority enrollment was going up as a result, and we were recruiting minority staff at the same time. So we all worked together to increase. It's something you can't just stop. You got to continually do, but it does work.
Kathy, it's hot in here. We thought maybe opening that door would help. Thanks.
I think,
That's just me.
He said, is it hot in here? I said, it's hot over there, but not particularly here.
I think Trustee Anderson was afraid I wasn't going to call on her again, but I did notice that we had been very efficient, and so we're going to have a little bit of free-for-all before. I have the last question. It's the easy question of the.
There are no easy questions.
Well, I'd like the trustees to have an opportunity to ask questions they would like to, just in any order you'd like to. And Terry, I do know you have a question.
Yeah, I have a question. Dr. Spraggs, this has all been very formal, right? And your answers, we appreciate your answers. And it's hard to get to know someone, through a process. And I think it's sometimes unfair to candidates. But anyway, this college prides itself, we pride ourselves in relationships throughout the college, knowing each other and respecting each other, et cetera. And knowing that every day isn't going to be golden, I'm curious about having you talk to us. This is two parts. What is your boiling point? What makes you mad or upset with staff? And then the second part to that is talk to us about how you would treat your immediate staff, men and women, and how they would perceive your management style.
Okay. I want to trust people, and I want to be trusted. So distrust is a problem. To lose trust in someone was I guess, I'm not a hothead by any means, but I want to have a shared trust among people. I want to have open conversations. I don't like deception. So, that to me is very important, to have, to earn trust and to get trust from, the people I work with. So that's something, it doesn't happen automatically. I'd like to assume that's where we start from, and that's something that I work on very hard, to, earn the trust of the people that work with me. So, but I expect it back. So, that's important to me. Trust is very important. How I work with staff, in one of the sessions I talked about some cornerstones for me, and I am an athlete, and I mentioned this, and I like the team concept. I don't like subordinates, and I don't like, like a chain of command necessarily. I like people working together as a team to make the mission of the college, have a life. So that's more my style. I do like to have serious and honest discussions about issues, and I do not like to have people, because the president said this is a good idea, then everybody agrees it's a good idea. I want dissension. I want people to express their minds, and that's very important to me, to have a staff that feels comfortable in saying, Larry, I don't think that's the right idea, and here's why. I really think that's important. Not just to agree with everything the president says because it's the president that said it. But then, that requires back from me no penalty for not agreeing with me. So that kind of environment, that give and take, is very important to me. And I think, the staff that I've worked with find it, enlightening. I mean, I like candor. I like creativity. I want honesty, and I want, ethical behavior is incredibly important to me. And I quite honestly want some humor in life. I mean, if you can't laugh at yourself and each other, then you've got a problem. So those are the kind of things that I work with. But trust, integrity, honesty, candor, humor. These are important watchwords for me in my staff relationships. That's important.
Did you notice that you didn't answer what your boiling point was? Because I could tell you what mine is.
What is yours?
No. being misrepresented, or misunderstood. I think that's my boiling point as far as, no, that's not what I said. So what do you think yours is?
Well, I said, that dishonesty, distrust is a boiling point, but, what I also said is I'm not explosive. I'm the slow boil type. That's why I don't sleep many nights. But it's something that, I just want honesty with people. I want to be treated honestly. I want to be honest with people. And I want them to recognize my honesty.
You're not a screamer, a yeller, slam the door,
No.
get out of here.
No. I'm going to go work out 2 times longer the next morning to, so.
Anyone else? Come on, I know you guys got questions.
Well, one of the things that I wondered as you were talking about policy governance, Dr. Spraggs, and you alluded to it, I think that the central success point of policy governance is communication on the part of the CEO. How often and in what form did you communicate with your board at Broome?
Well, I would send out typically a weekly email that described, recent initiatives, new initiatives. This might be in the paper next week. I want you to know about it. And if there was some press that was coming forward, I would send something out immediately to make sure. I don't like the idea either of the board reading something in the paper before I told them, that it happened or whatever. So, that kind of thing was a constant thing. Studies and programs, more document kinds of things when they were appropriate. I had a courier, so I would, make sure everything got delivered directly to the board member's house or business, wherever they wanted those things delivered.
Do you have board work sessions?
Yes, periodically. We had a retreat. I think we didn't have enough. I think a board retreat's very important, particularly with a new president. To have a board retreat. When you hire a new president, if it were me, I would be asking for a board retreat as soon as possible to start these conversations about me understanding the ends and the interpretation of the ends, the interpretation of executive limitations. I would want to, as soon as possible, build our trust with each other and my understanding of your, the nuances of your ends and, your policies. So that to me is important, and I think that, at least an annual board retreat. Work sessions, absolutely, on whatever topic that may be, the budget, or I mentioned that organizational kind of change, if that were to happen. That's certainly a topic for a work session, to understand that. So, yes, work sessions, communications on a continual or persistent basis, not just once in a while, but pretty regular. That's important to me. And, again, like I said, I would want to work with you in terms of your preferences. If it's lunches or breakfasts to talk, individually or, in pairs or whatever, I'd do that. You have several committees. I would want to work with the committees as well. We had one committee. I didn't, that's the board's choice. There was a finance and facility committee that pretty well did everything. And there were no other committees to that board. But, you have a number, I noticed, and I would like to be involved in those committees.
Looking at each other right here, because I'd be interested, I think, in knowing...
Maybe I misread it, but it sounded like...
the understanding that we have committees.
The board doesn't have committee. We speak together.
You represent on...
We don't have a finance committee.
The committee.
Okay, then I misread something in my studies, but I thought there was, like a budget committee, a finance committee.
We do have committees. We don't have any standing committees.
Okay.
We do have ad hoc committees.
All right, I was reading,
the
served on the evaluation of the president
president.
committee, and that's what I was assuming those were.
Yeah, we break
standing
down into
committees.
subgroups when it's necessary. Yeah,
Okay, I
You don't have
interpreted that as
standing
committees.
That's the difference, I should say.
Main differences, I think, in the policy governance boards. I'd like to have you tell us a little bit more about your face-to-face relationships with an appointed board, because I think it's going to vary directly to having an elected board. And it did bring a smile to my face when you said a board retreat or an annual board retreat. This board operates a little bit differently than that. But what were your face-to-face connections with your board, since it was an appointed board by the state and by the county?
Well, it varied according to the issue, or the period. When we were doing the master planning process for the college, the board was, I was involved with bringing it to them in like work sessions. They were involved in community events where we were doing focus groups on the master plan and that sort of thing. I met with the board. I would often go to lunch with various board members on various issues. I would consult board members over the phone about issues that they could, help me understand, or help me understand where other board members were. So it was, I guess you'd call it informal. It was more relationship based. I knew George I could call for this, and I knew Nick I could call for that, and try to, for understanding and for communication and advice. I mean, I used the board as a sounding board for things that were going on, and, using their position in the community, their understanding of the community. How would this be perceived? Where do you think we should go with this? I mean, that kind of thing.
Now, were these meetings initiated by you as president, or by the board, or a little bit of both?
More by me, because, I really sought them out for, and I felt it was my responsibility to keep them informed so it was more by me.
Now, as I understand, the board was 30 people, did you say?
No, 10.
10 people. I heard 30 from another source, I guess. All right, 10 people. So, and now I've understood you to say you'd contact a particular board member, for some advice or whatever. What one board member knows, then not every board member knew?
No, it was
Maybe two?
The board acted as a whole.
Yes.
But to say, I'm trying to think of an example about, we were going through a process of arming our security staff. That was sort of a hot button issue in the community. So, I would canvass the board about some of those issues. Newer board members that had been in place before, we had a security force on campus, new ones. I mean, just to try to get their opinion, because it all came to the board for decisions. But, I don't like to go to the board and not have people sort of on understanding, on board. If I don't want to have at a board meeting the killer question suddenly comes up that I never thought to ask or answer. So I'd like to have, working with the board to try to get some of that, pre-work done before decisions are made. So, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
When you canvass the board, do you do that personally, or do you have staff do it, or do you do it electronically?
I did it personally. Yeah, and sometimes electronically, please respond, and sometimes over the phone, depending on the issue.
Could I just say personally, thank you, Larry, for sharing your expertise with us today, and my apologies to my fellow board members, but I have a group of graduate students waiting on me, so I'm going to have to scoot out.
Yeah, because they leave after 10 minutes, don't they?
15 for me.
15. Okay.
Right. Full professor.
Well, you're going to miss the best question.
I think I heard it earlier today.
Watch it on TV.
Yes, please.
Jan and I sit together for quite a while, so I had written my question down, basically what Jan had asked. But just one more question in terms of the board. Does your board speak individually, or do they speak as one? Does the chair speak for the board?
Chair speaks for the board.
Okay.
And that they, I'd say, are really good at that. Maybe there's been a slip now and then, but they, that was very important, that the board that the chair spoke for the board, and that's really been the case.
Okay. That's very important to us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Me too, as the president.
Dr. Spraggs, we are closing in on the time, and so I'm going to ask you the final question, and that is, tell us what makes you uniquely qualified to be the president of GRCC.
I think the key thing I would say is that this is a mature community college. It's the oldest in Michigan. I think I read that right. And it, is on a very good plane right now. It's up there. The quality initiatives, the Baldrige Award. The college is poised for greatness. I mean, it is a very good college. It's poised to go further. And I think, given that situation, you need a very experienced president to take over this college. And what I bring to you is a real breadth and depth of experience from faculty member to president. I have done the gamut. And throw in there continuing ed and workforce development. Those are pieces that I bring too. So I bring to you, I think, a very unique experience that is hard to get in many people. I have been around the country in a variety of positions in a variety of states, variety of governance systems, variety of board organizations, and I've succeeded in all those places. So, I know I could succeed here with your help. I bring that breadth and depth of experience that could really take this college forward. Not that, it's about fit, and I think you're poised in a position where you need a very experienced president to take the reins of this college and continue to move it forward. And that's what I bring to you, that breadth and depth of experience. And another thing, I think we mentioned it in one of the other questions, but I bring new eyes to it. And, any of the candidates will bring that. But I bring new eyes in a way that I haven't worked in the Michigan system except as a faculty member. So I would have the opportunity to, work with any of the staff here, work with the other presidents of the other colleges, and ask what may be a dumb question, but why do what are you doing, and why are you doing it that way? And to do that with a real honesty that I think I could bring some new perspectives that someone that has been in the system, already knows the answers to all these questions, may overlook. So, I bring that uniqueness too. New eyes can really bring transformation of an institution that you can't get otherwise. So I bring that. Finally, I bring an incredible passion for community colleges, an incredible amount of energy to my work because I think it's so important. I think it's so very important. I mentioned sustainability initiatives in a couple of the forums. I think community colleges are poised to really, help this country survive some things that it, is going to have some time. It's going to need time to make up, and that is environmental degradation. The colleges can be the model for that. Economic revitalization. Colleges can be the model for that. Can be the real engine for those things to happen, and it can really renew democracy in a way to get minorities, immigrants. We are the place where they come for college in general, and to make them understand how democracy works in this country and how to participate in it, and how to choose elected officials that understand the rest of that package, understand how important environmental, economic, and democracy in general is to be practiced. And I think community colleges are poised to do that, and this one particularly. And that passion that I bring, I think, is something that I think is unique. At least the extent and the level of passion I have for this is unique.
Thank you. Any further questions or follow-up? Do you have anything else you'd like to say to us?
Well, I want to say thank you. It's been a pleasure. our dinner last night, today's forums. I thought the remarkable community involvement, the faculty, the staff, the students were lovely. It's been a great experience for me. I mean, again, talking about that passion, I've been able to, really talk about things that are very important to me, and I could really see a recognition of the same importance in the faces of the faculty, the staff, and the students. I mean, they seem to be, all their hearts and all in the right place, and I really felt a simpatico, let's say, with all the groups that I've met with. So I'd be very excited to be your president. I wish you the best. It's a very important decision, as you well know, for the future of the college. And I know you'll make the right one. I hope it's me, but I understand, and I wish you well. So thank you.
Dr. Spraggs, on behalf of the entire board, thank you for the time you've taken to come and join us. Articulate, you've been to the point. We appreciate your frankness and all of the things that you have brought to us. And so, with our thanks, that ends this interview.